Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2021 show. This is our first one of the season. We're about a week behind because I lost my internet access to my emails, and it disappeared from the face of the earth, or at least I couldn't find it. And with 2 hours work with our new computer doctor, Steve Fries, and 2 hours conversating with him, we got it solved, so we're back again. But if you have a problem with your computer, I highly recommend give Steve a call. Tell him what your problem is. If you need his help, he can stop by your house and make house calls. You can reach him at 317-328-0766. Today's program is presented by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, the SVRA, VP Insurance and Speedway, and McGilvery's Pub and Eatery, also in Speedway. As I said, if you got a computer problem, call Steve. He can help you. He helped me, he bailed me out because I couldn't get online to get my emails or anything. So he took care of it. Give him a call, 317-328-0766. And of course, your favorite doctor visit is the dentist. Well, I highly recommend Indy 500 veteran Dr. Jack Miller and his wife, Dr. Liz Lewis. They have the Indy Dental Group, and it is spectacular. They're one of the highest rated dental offices in the state. You can make an appointment, call them at 317-846-6125. And trust me when I tell you, you'll love them. Good people, good thing, you'll enjoy it. You wonder why do these guys and gals like to drive Indy cars? Well, you can find out. Take a ride in the Indy Racing Experience. You can go to IndyRacingExperience.com and find out what their schedule is, and it may not be set in stone just yet, but go online, find something that works for you. And in the promo box, put DK1, you get a 50% discount. Or you can call Shonda at the office. Number is 317-243-7171. Is it time to get insurance for your home, your car, or commercial property? Do what the insurance commissioner does every couple of years. Check, make sure you're getting the best price. And I highly recommend, as most of our fans and listeners have done, they found out VP Insurance can really help you. They're located at 5004 West 16th Street in Speedway. Give Mike Pardee a call, tell him what you need, and he'll tell you what he can do to help you. And you'll find you probably get better coverage for less money. His number is 317-248-0070. And if you're into vintage racing or into Trans Am, the SVRA is a place to go. And I highly recommend their Speed Tour magazine. In fact, Tony told me the next magazine coming out is the best they've ever done. So you can go to svra.com and subscribe to Speed Tour magazine. And while you're there, check their schedule. If there's a race anywhere that you can get to, I highly recommend you go. It's a spectacular show. You'll love it. Have any interest in having a vintage car restored or to buy one? Well, I highly recommend you call Grant King Shop. They can help you on both fronts. Number is 317-820-3595. And if you're interested in a tour, they may open from occasionally for a tour. So give them a call at that number and let them know you would like to come down, and they can see what they can do to help you to get in. Number is 317-820-3595. My guest is a gentleman that he and I bonded. I've just talked to him for the first time 5 minutes ago. He is the Chief Revenue Officer for IndyCar, and he's done marketing. He spent time with our friend Randy Bernard at the Professional Bull Riders Association, but he's now as a Chief Revenue Officer for IndyCar. Please welcome Mr. Casey Lane. Casey, thanks for taking time to chat with us because I've got some questions for you.
Thanks, Don. Appreciate you reaching out.
What is it that a Chief Revenue Officer does? Now, you've been involved in marketing prior to coming here, but do you do oversee any of the marketing as well as revenue?
It's mostly about sponsorship, really. My area of responsibility here is for Penske Entertainment is both on the IndyCar side as well as the Speedway side. And it's really responsible for sponsorship, getting new sponsorship, bringing sponsors in, managing those accounts. My team deploys all the sponsorship assets that we use both here at the Speedway and throughout the year on the IndyCar and the NTT IndyCar Series. And then I also have, licensing and merchandise and a couple other categories of business that roll up underneath me.
Now, are you responsible for sponsorship at the Speedway and for the series?
Correct.
If I'm starting a team, which a friend of mine is doing, And he said, geez, I need some information. I need a little help with my proposed sponsor. Do you do that? I know they used to. Do you still do that?
Sure. In terms of, providing them with, the information about the series and, what our fan base looks like and the demographic information and those types of things, we can certainly provide them. If they have any specific questions about a particular category that they might be interested in prospecting, we have folks on the team that can do a little bit of secondary research and, maybe pull some lifestyle data and things like that they might need.
Is there ever an opportunity if somebody needs the help and it's a worthwhile sponsorship that somebody would go with them, provided you didn't have to go to England to make a proposal? Could somebody go with a new team owner looking to put a sponsorship program together?
That's not something we've done in the past. I don't think we would be completely opposed to it. I think it would make more sense if the partnership was also was going to include some component of an IndyCar or an IMS partnership. But we'd certainly talk through that opportunity if somebody needed us to support them. We do our best to support them. Want to make sure that we're representing ourselves in the correct and appropriate way as to who we are and what affiliation we have with the teams. As the teams are separate entities from the sport. So we just need to make sure that we've got all that lined out before we went and did something.
Were you either a cowboy or a race fan?
Both. I grew up on a cattle ranch in California.
Oh, really? Oh.
And grew up doing Western sports, although I was never a bull rider, and participated in other, rodeo events and things growing up through high school and college. I've always been a fan of motorsports. Really, some of my family that aren't inclined to have been cowboys on my mom's side of the family. We're big race fans, lots of disciplines, of racing, but certainly watching the Indy 500 every year was something that my family did all the way in California. So,
how did the opportunity from bull riding to Indianapolis and racing come about? How did you end up leaving bull riding, coming to a racing facility in a racing series?
I was looking to, expand my sort of skill set and do something a little different in my career. At the time, I'd been working primarily in Western sports most of my sports career. And I got to know Mark and some of the team here through the relationship that we had at the time with IMS Productions and the PBR, with IMS Productions being the entity that produced some of the television content for the PBR. And so I got to know Mark and some of the team there, and we just sort of started a conversation about what they were looking for, and it matched up with some of the next steps I wanted to take in my career, and here I am. I've been here about a year and a half now, since just before the 2019 race.
Right. A thing that's always impressed me, and when Mark came here, he came from tennis. And when he came in and they announced he was coming in as president of IMS and IndyCar, many people, I got emails saying, what in the world does he know about racing? Well, other than coming to the 500, probably not much. But what he, in my mind, has shown is he knows how to get the right people for the right job. And I've been very impressed with some of the people he's brought in, or most of them for that matter. And I think it speaks well, in my mind, that he opened the door to you and seen what you were able to accomplish at PBR. And so here you are.
Yeah, I think, across sports, really, you think about some of the sports that are a little less, prominent in terms of the everyday, lifestyle. I mean, we just came off a big NFL weekend, and here in the U.S., obviously, they're the 10,000-pound animal as it relates to, marketing and advertising. And the rest of the sports, particularly motorsports, bull riding, tennis, golf, they have a little bit different story to tell, and a little bit of a different, perspective on how to sell partnerships. And so I think my experience coming from sort of a fighter brand like the PBR was helpful in coming in here to IndyCar and trying to, change the perspective a little bit, go after some different targets and, talk a little bit differently about what we have to offer. Certainly as it relates to the Speedway, bringing anybody in here that has any affinity to sports, it doesn't take long to fall in love with this place and what it means to the community here in Central Indiana and what it means to the world of motorsports as the most famous, venue and the racing capital of the world.
I find it interesting what's happened since the stewardship of the Speedway has changed hands from the Hulman George family to Penske Entertainment. What Roger has done is astounding. When people that haven't been here yet, and it's hundreds of thousands that haven't been here yet, when they see this place, they're going to go, holy Toledo. But that aside, with what everybody in the country's had to put up with this virus, has that made it difficult in sales for motorsports, for IndyCar, for IMS? Are people, I'm sure, aren't knocking on your door necessarily say, hey, we want to get involved?
Yeah, I think across the board in sports and in marketing in general, frankly, marketing and advertising, I have lots of friends in the television business. The world has really changed with COVID. Not being able to host fans, it's obviously a major component of what we, market here at the Speedway when we're marketing toward partners. The same for all our promoter partners on the IndyCar side. I mean, we certainly have, what there is to offer from a television standpoint and the exposure that, that companies get through sponsorship of the series, through sponsorship of teams, right? A lot of that sort of held true, but a lot of the things that we do, to attract sponsors are related to the amount of people here, to the kind of people that come to this event from a broad consumer base, as well as from sort of these strong business to business partnerships that we have both at IndyCar and through the teams. It's certainly been challenging. The things that have sort of helped us persevere are our ability to be flexible, to build new assets with partnerships, our ability to sort of move and pivot on the fly, create new things out of thin air that we can market to fans against. Last year we did some things with Doug Bowles and Miller Lite, related to Carb Day and sort of some happy hour stuff. So those are the things that I think helped us, do well in a challenging year.
What I think people don't realize is two things, or there's probably a lot of things that I don't realize, but number one is the accessibility in IndyCar in particular. In Formula One, you get nowhere near the paddock. In NASCAR, it's very difficult to get in. But in IndyCar, it's the availability of getting into the paddock and seeing drivers and talking to drivers and watching the work on the car, I think is second to none anywhere in the world in first-class motorsports. And also the networking for businesses. People think, well, it's got to be a motorsport, an automobile-related business. That's not true, because there are companies in here that you might sell widgets, and there's a company here that said, geez, I've been looking for those, and here you get together, and it's worked very well. Look at Target, for instance. They didn't own a race car, but they were here for 25 years. Obviously, it worked for them, and it can work for almost any company.
Yeah, and I think, we tried to preserve as much of that as we could for teams particularly. Jay and his team did a fantastic job of building out, sort of a COVID plan related to the way that we operated the paddock in all the markets where we had fans. Certainly didn't get the access to the pit and garage area, to the drivers, and to the teams. The team members, that corporate hospitality clients are used to. But we were able to offer teams the opportunity to bring their hospitality rigs into some of these markets, entertain guests. Lots of the teams figured out great, unique ways, both with fans on site, with their clients on site, and with their clients at home, to do virtual hospitality and get some access to the drivers and the other team members, through the way that you and I are communicating now through Zoom or Blue Jeans or Teams or some other type of a digital platform.
It's come up, and it happened last year. Obviously, some races were not only postponed, but some of them were canceled. And this year has started off with the original date for Long Beach was changed to the end of the year. And just recently, St. Petersburg was moved to April 25th, I believe it is. So Barber is the opening thing. Have the promoters been willing to work with you to move their schedule around if need be obviously for their benefit as well as their fans?
Yeah, for sure. We were just really trying to be proactive. I think the world sort of knew that having an event in the middle of April in California, particularly one that's a road course or a street course event that has to be built from the ground up. We knew that was going to be a very, very, unlikely scenario when we started the year out, and the promoter did a fantastic job, working with their individual jurisdiction and creating the right opportunity to move that event. And then moving the St. Pete event, does a lot of things for us. It gives us a little bit of time and flexibility, for the mayor and for Green Savory, our promoter partners down there, to make sure that it's a real safe environment for the fans to be. And that's obviously the number one priority. And then the second thing it does for us is it really creates a nice opportunity for us to, put our schedule in a place that's real consumable for television. We have 6 of the first 8 races on NBC network television, and really creates a nice schedule for us from a marketing standpoint, so that we're not asking our fans to watch the first race and then sit at home with nothing to consume for a month and a half.
Well, I think the thing that impresses me is that NBC is willing to put it on the network. People can watch that. And I like their broadcast team. I think Townsend Bell and Paul Tracy make a good combination, because they both did been there. They've done it. In fact, Townsend is still driving. So I think they bring a lot to the table. And I don't know if you probably have figured out by now that if you get a play-by-play guy in the booth and he doesn't know what he's talking about, the fans will spot that right now. It doesn't take long for them to say, well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But I think their television package is excellent. I think NBC's doing a good job. And one of the things that I like to see is they do promote upcoming events. They'll put it on some other sporting event, and they'll put down upcoming, IndyCar, wherever it happens to be. And I think that's pretty important to me.
Yeah, they've been a fantastic partner, both in their flexibility as well as their, really sort of leaning into the entire schedule. Not just the 500. They really believe in the property. They believe that the NTT IndyCar series has potential for growth. It's a great audience grabber right now. So they've put, a lot of time and effort into helping us, develop the right tune-in and promotional plans. You'll see actually in the coming weeks in the playoff schedule that they have, you'll see them starting to promote their championship season, which talks a lot about the Kentucky Derby and their PGA Championship and the Indy 500. They'll talk about that in some of their promotional stuff in the NFL playoffs in the coming weeks.
Well, I think, to me, the thing that IndyCar does that I believe is a good thing is they don't start the season off with the 500. It's not in the middle, but it's close to the middle, so you have some activity building up to it, and get fans' interest and look forward to the 500, and then afterwards, the following events to me are equally as big and exciting. And the thing about the IndyCar, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, is if you win the championship in this series, you're probably one of the best drivers in the world, because you've got short ovals, long ovals, road course, street course, permanent courses. I mean, you got to master all of them in order to win the championship, and there's no other series that does that to the extent that IndyCar does.
Yeah, and I think it's a nice way to keep the schedule, to keep things, relevant and popping in the minds of the fans, right? I mean, you start off the season, you got a few races to get to know sort of the new drivers in the new cars, who the rookies are, what the new teams might be, sort of lay of the land in terms of who's hot. What teams might have uncovered some new gold in the off season that's put them at the front of the grid. And then you get into the Indy 500, which is, an experience, a race, an event like no other in the world. And then as you transition out of the 500, you get to start talking about who's in contention for the championship, and that sort of push towards the end of the year. And I think it makes for a really nice opportunity for fans to understand, the sport and how it lays out in the way that you said, that it's not just about, one setup and one particular type of racetrack.
How does the fact that fans are limited, and this year we still don't know if how it's going to pan out. Will the 500 allow 350, 400,000? Not likely, I don't think, but I don't know. It's hard to tell yet. But how difficult is the sales when I think a lot of the sponsors look for fans on site? I mean, the Air Force has come back, which I think is great, and Connor Daly's a super representative for them, but they used to bring an aircraft in. They can't do that. They had recruiters on site. They can't do that. He used to go to schools and talk to kids at high schools, and you can't do that. But has that affected your job to try and get sponsors interested in coming to, say, the 500 or the Speedway, I should say, and the IndyCar series? Because they say there's no fans. Who do we market to?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is. Like I said earlier, it made things more challenging last year. It continues to be, part of the challenge we have in front of us. A couple things that are in our favor. One, we have such a great reputation in terms of, the way that we're able to deliver for partners. The relationships that we have helped us, sort of survive through, 2020 into 21. We were able to renew some partnerships. We were able to, move around some assets and be flexible with the partners that gives them confidence that no matter what happens, we're gonna do right by them and make sure that they're, getting the best benefits they can. I think there's a lot of value being associated with all of the properties that we sort of represent: the NTT IndyCar Series, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and the Indy 500. And the partners that are smart about how they market, although there's a missing component, not having fans on site, are able to take the association, and leverage that in their own marketing and communication through their digital and social networks, through, things that they might be doing at retail, like they've done all along, with whether it's a soda partner like Pepsi or a beer partner like Miller Lite. They can leverage that at retail. So there's lots of other benefits that we can offer partners, outside of just the sort of hand-to-hand combat with the fans. But certainly has restricted what we're able to promise.
How much is the iRacing that's done in the off season? I think there's some upcoming here shortly. How much has that helped the awareness? I know it's amazing the number of people that watched, and it was fun to watch these guys, and they're sitting in their living room with a driver's suit on, with a simulator racing. Has that kept fan interest, and they have promoted their sponsorships on the car in their simulator racing? And I've also noticed that the broadcasters mention the sponsors of the various teams from time to time so that they get a little bit of publicity that way as well. But has the iRacing done a lot?
Yeah, I think it's been a great, I think you'll see it as part of our strategy moving forward, even during times when we can have, regularly scheduled events and fans, because I think it's a fun way. One of the goals that we have as an organization is to, get fans better acquainted with our drivers, right? And use our drivers as sort of the lead to, go get new fans, right? I mean, the world that we live in today is a lot about personalities, and, you see it, sort of trickle down from the way that the Olympics is covered, getting to understand who these athletes are and what makes them tick is something that fans enjoy. And I think the iRacing helps us with that. It helps show, what kind of guys these guys are and sort of what their competitive spirit looks like. Some of them are better than others at iRacing. Some of them don't spend a lot of time, working on their craft in terms of the iRacing properties or the digital racing properties. But I mean, I don't think it's a substitute for the real thing, but I think it's a really strong part of our strategy to keep fans engaged during times when we're not on the track.
And I agree with you that the accessibility to the paddock area in IndyCar, and as you said, the personality of drivers. You got Elio Castroneves, you got James Hinchcliffe, who could be a stand-up on his own, but he says he still gets reminded by Elio that he finished second, and Elio won the Dancing with the Stars. But most all the drivers are approachable. As long as they're not putting their head on, they will stop. They'll pose for a picture. They'll chat briefly. They'll sign autographs, and I don't think you see that quite as much in any other series. And people fall in love with drivers. I mean, I know some people that they just die to see them, and they go to, I know one person that goes every race by herself to every race, and she manages to get into the pit and garage areas and knows the drivers and so forth. And to me, it's a different sport. In football, you can't go down on the field and see everybody, and it's a fan-friendly sport, and they've made sure that it remains that way.
Yeah. No, it's an important part of our DNA, right? It's really something that sets us apart from other sports, and in a lot of cases other motorsports.
I don't think there's any question about that. The only one that comes close would be NHRA, and they have their stars and they're good people, and they did get into a ticket to the race is a ticket to their paddock area, so it's similar. How much different is marketing racing as opposed to bull riding? Is there a big difference? Is it more difficult one as opposed to the other?
There's differences and similarities. Obviously a different set of endemic partners. On the endemic side for bull riding, it's Wrangler Jeans and those types of companies, and here it's a little bit more centered around the automotive industry, and so there's those differences, but really it's a similar type of challenge where it's a smaller audience type sport, but it's very has a very passionate following. I think one of the similarities is those people that are fans of IndyCar and fans of bull riding sort of lead with those sports, right? They might also be fans of the NFL or of NASCAR or of some other sport or team, but they really lead. Their fandom they're so passionate about IndyCar that's what they lead with, and they like to go out and sort of evangelize that to their friends and family, and become a real advocate for the sport. So I think those are things that are similar. One thing related to what makes IndyCar, I think, easier is certainly a lot more people have heard of it or understand it, particularly when you start talking about the Indy 500. It's a little easier to get to first or second base with the conversation around race car driving than it is around bull riding, because it's more familiar to people, and certainly more familiar in racing is that they've lots of people have had a steering wheel in their hands before. Not so much with bull riding. So
that's true. Everybody's probably had a steering wheel in their hand, and at one time or another on the interstate wanting to see how fast they could go. But have with the things going on last year, and it's going to carry the start of this year, of course, when you make a call, can you get in the door? I mean, I'm sure they're probably not calling you, say, hey, we should join you, or maybe they are, but are you having any trouble getting to sit down and talk to people and present what IndyCar and IMS has to offer?
No, I think for the most part we're not challenged in getting in the conversation. I would say the challenge this year is, and will continue to be, typically these types of decisions were made in the summertime,
right.
2021, right? Most companies, their sort of corporate cycle of figuring out marketing things, they start talking to folks in April, May, June for what they might be doing the next year. As the summertime comes together, they start narrowing it down to the things that they want to learn more about, and then in the early to fall to to early winter, they make their decisions and lay their budgets out. Right now, most companies are still have a lot in flux. They've not really signed on for a lot of new initiatives. I think with everything that's gone on in the country in the last 10 months, a lot of companies are either A, not really investing in a lot that's new, or B, sort of taking a wait and see approach to how they're going to attack 2021.
Are there any new sponsors joining either the series or the Speedway?
We have a couple of new ones that joined that'll be, not necessarily, big sort of out front brands. but we had a few that we've, worked with, this year. I'm sure you saw that, we started a partnership with Pennzoil last year that we weren't really able to put the full weight behind. They were a sponsor of the NASCAR Xfinity race that we did here, as well as the tech inspection area at IndyCar. So you'll see some more of that. A couple others that we brought on a CDK, which is a software specific to the automobile industry, is going to come on this year and do some things. Similarly, Auto Trader will be a partner this year in some respects, both in the IndyCar side and the IMS side. A lot of content and sort of digital media opportunities associated with some of those partnerships.
So in other words, I can sleep at night knowing that the Speedway and the series are going to go forward. They have the attention and the sponsorship required to open the doors and throw the green flag.
Absolutely. I would say we're in a better position than lots of sports, and I think a lot of that has to do with the strength of our relationships that we have, the reputation that we have for delivering against sponsorship, and the reputation of our new ownership group for making things outstanding. Right? I mean, Roger's got a reputation across all industries of being a stellar person to work with, leads an organization of the highest integrity, and has the ability to go make things happen. And so I think that helps us as well.
I think the entire business world, as well as sporting world, I'm assuming, realizes his word is when he tells you it's what he's going to do. That's exactly what he does.
Yep.
He doesn't throw ideas out and say, what he says he's going to paint the guardrail for the road track, he's going to paint it. It gets painted. Yeah.
And he's not afraid to go the extra mile either, as it relates. I think a lot of our partners have found, like I say, with Roger coming in and his organization, that it just, further enhances, what we had here already. And, and whether that's, getting them involved in business relationships with, with other Penske companies or with, Penske partners, making introductions, doing the types of things that, that really are in the true spirit of partnership that might not appear in any contract or agreement anywhere. That's just the way they operate. They believe strongly in relationships, and they've inherited the relationships that came along with the Speedway and with IndyCar, and have wrapped their arms around them and embraced them in every way possible.
Well, you had mentioned that the drivers are part of the main key to what gets fans excited and so forth. And one of the things, I don't know if you probably are aware that I used to do my program from McGilvery's in Speedway. Mm-hmm. Since last February, almost a year now. We've obviously not been there, but I like to get the young drivers, even the ones in the USF 2000 and Pro 2000, so people know the name, recognize the name, so as they move up into the Indy Lights and then onto IndyCar, they're recognizable, and people do know who they are and a lot of them start following them early on, which is what I like to do. I like to get the young kids in and talk to them and let people know who they are. And I think that's my primary thing. Try to get drivers, but of course right now there's not a lot of them around town. They're all away wherever they are. But we've taken this opportunity to talk to somebody like yourself, because I get a lot of questions. How are things? Are they going to have sponsorship? Are there new teams coming? Strangely enough, there are. So that speaks, I think, huge that there are companies willing to go with new teams, and one or two, or maybe even as many as three, could join the series this year. And I think
it really speaks to the overall health of the sport. It speaks to the ability for Jay and his team, and with the help of Roger's team, to make this an affordable and competitive endeavor for somebody to be involved in. I think, obviously it's never cheap to own any kind of a race car team. But I think that our team has done a great job of allowing teams to put a competitive product on the track without having exorbitant, costs, associated with running and managing the team.
Well, when you compare to have an IndyCar team from start to finish, from to say, let's do it, to start and putting it on the track, 6 or 7 million is probably a good starting point. There's teams a little more than that. There's teams with a little less. But you want to own a Major League Baseball team or a football team or a basketball team, you're talking hundreds of millions. So obviously, to get into this sport, it's to me, it's one of the most unique sports in the world. I've been around it since 1962. And, you don't find much better people than what I have found in racing. You don't have all of the problems that other sports have. It's a clean sport. It's a good sport. It's a friendly sport. And it's fun. It's exciting, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to chat. You've answered the questions, and I've had several. When I said who was coming on, I said, well, ask him about this or ask about that, which, strangely enough, I remembered and did. So I appreciate your time, and look forward to hearing some announcements and new sponsors or new things going on. It's always moving, always, to me, it's always elevating. It never goes backwards. It keeps staying there and moving forward. I think it's great.
Great. I appreciate the time. Thanks for having me on, Don.
Well, thank you for being here. My guest has been Casey Lane, the Chief Revenue Officer for the IndyCar Series, as well as Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We have some new guests that will be, not new guests, but we have guests that are lined up to be coming up in the next few days and the next week. So we're back again. My computer's fixed. We're back up and running. And of course, I got to thank my IT genius, Mr. Ted Howlett, for taking time out of his day to come and help us out. Without him, I'm lost because I don't know how to do this yet. Probably won't either, actually. So until next time, I want to thank Casey for taking the time to talk to us. Until next time, Don Kay saying, see you next time. Thanks.